Hello, everyone. Brother Al McClain with this week's stewardship video. And as always, we always start with the disclaimer. No advice should be seen as a recommendation or an endorsement, as I am not a licensed financial advisor, and this is for educational purposes only. You want to do your own research if you have a certified financial planner or an investment advisor, someone in that capacity. That's what they're there for. So you're not seeing a rerun, but this is herd mentality part two. And last week I talked about me parking on this row at our church because I saw others parking in that row. Normally, this is where I park, but I parked there because I said, well, must be some reason why everyone's herded up in this area. So I will park back there. And it led to a conversation about herd mentality. And herd mentality, when it comes to the financial world, is not necessarily a good thing. Key aspect of herd mentality is the tendency to follow the crowd, which frequently leads to irrational financial decisions that may not serve an individual toward their long-term goals. I said we should have a Christ-centered heart versus our herd mentality. In Romans 12, verses 1 and 2, the Message Bible says, don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. Unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level in immaturity. So I began to kind of work on that this week as I was attending a Christian Stewardship Network, which is a group I've been associated with for probably, 12, 15 years. And each year we have an annual conference called The Forum. This year it was in Nashville, Tennessee. You can see my good friend David Thompson was opening up and moderating during this weekend or this week, March 2nd through the 4th. And this led me to believe in having a Christ-centered heart, we should be in community. And you can see to the right, here's a picture of kind of the big group. And in fact, I think this is when we were doing our working lunch. It's about 100, 125 of us on a regular meet together. And some have been coming for years, like I have. And then we had about 70 new people it was their first forum. So this led to me believe the Bible talks about being in community. So this is a like set of believers focused on the area of biblical stewardship. So Acts 2 verses 42, and all of these are New Living Translations that I'm using here. All the believers devoted themselves to the apostles, teaching and to fellowship and to sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper, and to prayer. And then Hebrews 10, verse 24 through 25 says, let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together. Here we go, community fellowship. And let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. So, what this is saying is there's a meaning behind community. We should be, praying together, teaching each other, fellowship, and encouraging one another, and sharpening each other up. Proverbs 27 and 17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. So we grow off of each other. We get motivated from each other. We encourage each other. We learn from each other, and we keep each other accountable. And we, again, sharpen our skills. Ecclesiastes 4 verses 9 through 10 says, two people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person fails, so the other each can pick each up out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. So what this is saying is not only are we encouraging, we're motivating, we're praying together, we're learning from each other, but if one falls into trouble, the other's there to help the other person out. So the contrast of the world's way of herd mentality, we are in community as Christ followers. And if your community on that same mission and purpose, like we are in the forum where we meet together and we continue on after the forum, continue to reach out to each other, continue to network, continue to reach out to each other, sometimes by Zoom, sometimes with newsletters and emails with each other to continue in that like-mindedness when it comes to biblical finances and stewardship. So let's change the gears somewhat. Take a look at this week's earnings, March 9th. And here are the anticipated earnings as we come into not as many large companies because we're starting to get toward the end of earnings season, but we have a couple of them in here. Two that will probably affect the technology world. I don't know if their market will move that much, but we're going to talk about what's moving the market. Oracle, Adobe, here's Kohl's. Here's something I just spotted actually while making this video, while I'm on this slide. This AeroVironment, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but this, the symbol AVAV, they make drones. And it's specifically drones toward the war effort. We're going to talk about that right after this slide, actually. And then Alta, that's reporting. So one of the things we talked about last week is being aware of the news and how the news cycle will affect oftentimes what's going on in the market. And so we know there is a war going on in Iran. And one of the concerns was there's so many munitions being used, so many weapons being used that could possibly run out. So the president had a meeting, and again, I've often said this, it's not a matter of whether you believe in the war or don't believe in the war, but we need to be aware of potential opportunities. And if from your, ethical standpoint, and from your beliefs that I'm not going to support this, that's fine. But also be aware there could be opportunities in the area of defense stocks. And so the president called together all the CEOs, and they were talking about quadrupling their production when it comes to weapons, because the war will deplete the weapons and munitions that are going on. I pointed out that drone company that's listed. Again, make your own decisions. This area is in XLI, which is the exchange funds in the industrial space. And you can see, looking at this year to date, what's been up 28% in the area of industrials. The other is energy, 31%. And that's going to probably go higher as there is concern, as we talked about last week, about the oil and the shortage in the Hormuz Straits, and the amount of demand still staying there, but the supply starting to decrease. So that area, industrials, has, take a look at it, XLI, and I use stock analysis to look in there. Geo Aerospace is a defense stock. RTX Corporation is a defense stock. Boeing, although they make, of course, we know, res, you know, passenger passenger airplanes, they also have defense stocks or defense provide to the defense industry. Honeywell also provides for the defense industry. So here is another exchange traded fund. You can see I use stock analysis, and here's that what I was talking about. That news alert here: Iran conflict raises defense supply chain concerns, meaning that it's maybe drying up. Here's ITA, which is an exchange traded fund specifically in the aerospace and defense industry. And there you go. There's GE Aerospace, there's RTX Corporation, there's Boeing, Lockheed Martin, which is a huge corporation in the Grand Prairie, Fort Worth, Dallas area, Northrop Grumman, L3 Harris Technologies, General Dynamics, all of these are in the top 10 of that ITA. So you can look at doing an exchange traded fund, or you can go to Fidelity and do those stock dollar amounts if you don't have enough. And a lot of these companies are also in the stock slices that Charles Schwab's sales, or you could just go and buy these stocks outright. Again, you'll have to make the decision if you want to support defense stocks, or you want to invest in them, but can't be blind to the opportunity that's there. The other thing you could do is also, let me go back to this slide here. We talked about energy being up, and there's industrials being up. So you say, Al, I don't want to do the defense stocks. But the other is consumer staples. It's up year to date, 10%. And so that's an opportunity. It's actually the larger one up if you look year to date. Those were 1 year that we talked about earlier, 10% is consumer. And so you may say that is more my opportunity. So look at a exchange traded fund, for instance, KXI. That's one. Oh, I'm sorry. You could look at individual companies here: Walmart, Costco, Philip Morris. These are all different ones that could be opportunities. And one of the things you could look at is an exchange traded fund called KXI. And here are the top companies in that exchange traded fund: Walmart, Costco, Philip Morris, Procter and Gamble, Coca-Cola. And maybe one thing you want to look at is who supplies two of the largest, you know, producers when it comes to providing for consumer staples: Walmart and Costco. Well, who supplies them? PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, Tyson Foods, Kraft Heinz, Nestle, General Mills. Maybe that's the way you play it. And these also are one of they're not only consumer staples when it comes to things like toilet paper or toiletries, but also grocery chains. So take a picture of this slide. Maybe this is the way you want to go versus defense stocks. And as we close out, we take a look at QQQ. And just as a quick review, QQQ is focused primarily on the NASDAQ, which tends to be technology companies. And you can see it's still in that window. In fact, it might have gotten tighter in the last couple of weeks. That's the price that's been just oscillating in that same little area. It may be even tighter for SPY, which is the uh, S&P Standard & Poor 500. It's kind of its upper edge, but it's still in that same channel. With that, that's this week's stewardship video. Uh, as always, hope this is your ability to have iron sharpening iron, and this represents a community to you. Feel free to, if someone can be, you feel could be blessed by this and could be encouraged by it, or could receive some teaching, feel free to forward it to them. And with that, that's this week's stewardship video. We'll see you next week.